Well, I wanted, regarding MANAC for Gne myopathy, and I know that the topic of my presentation was to give updates in general for other therapies, but I wanted first to talk about a little bit of what are the things that we need to look for in Gne myopathy in order to be able to determine whether a therapy is truly efficacious or not, and how we can tell the difference. And for that, I will use the example of what we've learned with MANAC over the last several years. As you have probably heard during these presentations, Gne myopathy is an autosomal recessive disease, a genetic disease that is very rare. Our estimates currently are between 1 to 6 people in every million that are affected, although we know that the majority of the patients are still undiagnosed. The onset is in young adults with foot drop, and the disease slowly progresses to cause muscle atrophy and weakness of all skeletal muscles, although some muscles, such as the quadriceps, get involved slower than others. Currently, the diagnosis is made mainly by muscle biopsy, but it is confirmed by genetic testing and the identification of 2 disease-causing changes in the Gne gene. And currently, there is no therapy that has been proven to be efficacious for Gne myopathy. One of the most important things to understand about the disease is how it happens. And here I am showing the inside of a cell. Inside every one of the cells of our body, but particularly we're going to talk about inside the muscle cells, there is a normal pathway, a mechanism by which the cells produce sialic acid, and ultimately use sialic acid to attach it to proteins, as you can see, and where sialic acid has its function. This sialic acid needs to come from inside of the cell. In Gne myopathy, there is no production of MANAC, no production of sialic acid. Then the sialic acid cannot be attached to muscle proteins, and that's what we believe causes the deterioration of skeletal muscle. So it has been proposed many years ago that either providing MANAC or sialic acid to cells will increase the sialic acid inside of the cell to increase the sialation of muscle protein. This, in fact, is shown by this mechanism in Gne myopathy, where there is no activity or decreased activity of the enzyme to produce MANAC, therefore affecting the production of sialic acid. But if MANAC or sialic acid were to be given back to the system, there will be a production of the entire pathway, and the end product of the pathway is not sialic acid, but CNP sialic acid that then donates sialic acid to the proteins that are being produced and then attached to the membrane of the muscle cells. Back in 2009, a paper published by Dr. Nishino's group as well as a paper published by the NIH, by our group, showed in 2 different mouse models of Gne myopathy that providing MANAC would prevent, since birth, would prevent the development of the disease, maintain the muscle function, and decrease the changes that are seen either at the muscle cell level and in terms of decreased muscle brain vacuum. The Japanese mouse model really represents very well better than the model developed in Jerusalem. The Japanese mouse model represents well the progression of the disease in patients. Therefore, back in, we started developing MANAC as a therapy for Gne myopathy. The most important thing to develop a therapy properly is to develop treatment trials that are approved, that will be ultimately approved, in our case, by the FDA. And the FDA has high standards when it comes to approving therapy. However, once the therapy is approved, then we know that it has been shown to be safe to administer to patients and effective. So these 2 things need to be fulfilled when we develop treatment trials: safety and efficacy. So back in 2012, we started the first treatment trial of MANAC in patients with Gne myopathy. This was called as first in human because it's the first time ever that this particular medication was being given to humans, and the main purpose was to determine safety. But also to see, once administered by mouth, what would happen to the MANAC in the body, whether it would be absorbed into the bloodstream, and whether it would cause an effect in patients with Gne myopathy. To be eligible for this trial, patients were required to have a positive genetic testing identifying 2 mutations in the gene. This is very important for treatment trials. If patients are considering in participating in treatment trials, we do recommend having genetic testing in hand because this assures the investigators that, in fact, we are studying the effects of the disease in the patient population that has Gne myopathy, and not just someone that has a similar disease that presents clinically in a similar fashion. So it is very important to confirm the disease by genetic testing. As I mentioned, the main objectives of the trial were to evaluate safety and tolerability, but also how the body handles MANAC. And to this effect, we developed the first method to measure in blood MANAC, but we also developed a method to measure sialic acid with a very high level of accuracy using a tandem mass spectrometry method, which is one of the most sensitive methods currently available. Here, and we found that MANAC, as a single dose, was safe and well tolerated. We did see at the 3 dose levels, 3 and 6 grams of MANAC, the adverse events were very similar to those of placebo, so there was no statistically significant difference with those of placebo. But in the patients that received 10 grams, half of them had a single self-resolving episode of diarrhea, which very likely meant unabsorbed annex in the small bowel. Here are the blood levels of manna after the 3 doses in all the patients. The half-life of manna is very quick, and it leaves the body by 10 or 12 hours, reaching the peak by 2 hours. This is the same peak we see in sialic acid. It enters the body very quickly, but it doesn't stay for long, and it leaves the body rather quickly. However, we also saw that the gray area is manna, and the blue were sialic acid. We would see that after a single dose of Marimac, we were able to restore the sialic acid production. These levels of sialic acid stayed beyond 48 hours, only 2 days. We know based on how quickly sialic acid would otherwise leave the body that, in fact, by giving manna, we were able to restore up to 2 days the production of sialic acid and measure it in the plasma. And we were able to show that the levels of sialic acid after manna were equal in patients that had kinase inhibition as patients that had epimerase or a combination of epimerase kinase mutation, which is important. So in summary, as part of our phase 1, we saw that doses of 3 and 6 grams were safe and well tolerated, but most importantly, and very much to our surprise, that oral manna leads to sustained increase in sialic acid, slowly suggesting a restoration of the biosynthesis inside of the cell. And also in patients with kinase mutation. The 10 gram dose was considered to be high and well absorbed. And we recently have a publication, if you want to see the details of our study, this is the paper. After that study, we started a phase 2 open-label study at the NIH with the primary objective of guaranteeing long-term safety and tolerability and studying how the body handles the drug over a prolonged period of time, but also to determine the biochemical efficacy of manna. And finally, understand what better endpoints and biomarkers could be used for future trials. And again, these patients require to have confirmation by genetic testing, as well as the ability to perform multiple strength measurements. In these patients, a total of 12 subjects were initially given 2 doses, but then both moved to 6 milligrams twice daily for a total of 12 grams per day, divided into 2 doses, and they were dosed for a total of 30 months. In this long-standing phase 2 trial, we saw again that half of the subjects have issues with gastrointestinal tolerability, mainly shown as gas, and sometimes, and in some patients, stools. some of which were very difficult to tolerate, leading to two patients dropping off because of these issues. And then the other concern that we have was high levels of triglycerides in a patient. Because of the tolerability issues and findings that we had on how the body handles the drug, we were able to understand that dividing the drug, the MANAC, in 2 doses was causing it to not be appropriately absorbed. And in fact, if we were to divide 12-gram doses into 3 times daily, we could increase the availability by 20%. So if we were to divide MANAC in 3 doses rather than 2, we could absorb 20% more MANAC than we were on twice daily. But most importantly, as part of this trial, we took muscle biopsy samples before and after giving MANAC for 3 months, and we showed a 137% increase in the amount of dilation on the muscle cells after MANAC administration. So what does this mean? In the phase 1, we showed that we were increasing the intracellular production of MANAC, and on the open label trial, we showed that we increased the dilation of muscle proteins in MANAC. Now, our goal on the next trial will be to show that the strength in Gne Mi myopathy is maintained, or that the progression of the disease is slowed down or stopped with giving MANAC. To be able to do this, we need to use very sensitive methods. Because Gne Mi myopathy is very slowly progressive. And in this slide, I am showing different muscles. This is time, what we call disease age. This is 0, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. The disease progresses over 40 years or more. And therefore, the methods that we use need to be sensitive, but they also need to be focusing on the muscles that are actively progressing in a specific patient, because the muscle progression is different in every patient. And that makes the development of trials very difficult. As you can see here, we want to use treatment when this is 100% strength and 0% strength. If we measure treatment when a muscle is not yet progressing, it's hard to determine that treatment, or if it has fully progressed, it's very hard to develop. If we measure effect when the muscle, we can easily measure its effect. Therefore, it is important that as scientists developing trials, we take this into consideration. As part of that, we tested the ability for us to use a very sensitive measure of strength and to see whether we could measure the flow of progression of the disease in Gne myopathy using these methods. And we found that in 12 patients after 18 months, we were able to measure almost a 50% slowing in the rate of progression, with a 96% chance that in fact MANAC was slowing the progression of the disease. Now, this wasn't the main objective of the trial, to measure efficacy, but it was to see if using our methods to measure treatment effects were useful. So in summary, on the open label trial, we showed that Panax is safe, but not very well tolerated at doses of 6 grams twice daily, because there's gastrointestinal effects likely to be caused by unabsorbed Manax. But that 4 grams 3 times a day increases the absorption and may improve tolerability. And our preliminary findings suggest that there is also rethylamation as well as a slowing in the rate of progression by measure of muscle strength. Now, based on these findings, we are putting together a trial that has been funded by the National Institute of Musculoskeletal Diseases at the NIH, and that will be implemented through NeuroNext. And NeuroNext is a network of hospitals across the U.S. that specialize in doing trials for neurological diseases. And they have done many trials before us, and so they are very good at it. We would be the 9th trial they will be running in their network. I am the principal investigator together with Dr. Amato from Harvard University, and we expect to start recruitment after the summer. In our design for the trial, we will have 51 subjects. For every 2 patients that receive Manax, 1 will receive placebo. This is required in order to convince scientists as well as the FDA and other regulatory authorities that of the treatment effect of Manax. Our primary endpoint will be the sensitive quantitative muscle strength assessment that I was showing you on the slides before, and it will be analyzed depending on the actively progressive muscle in each one of the particular patients that we include. This design will give us almost 90% power. What is 87% power? It means that we will be able to determine with 87% accuracy whether there is treatment effect or not. Unfortunately, as we have heard before, there have been trials such as the one with sialic acid in which they weren't able to measure accurately treatment effect, and they are not sure what the effect might be. We in fact have calculated their power of their particular trial and found it to be quite low. So it is very important when running treatment trials to ensure that they are designed in a way that will be able to yield accurate answers to the investigators. And that's why the natural history study of the disease is so important to perform, so that we can understand progression and understand what sort of endpoints, numbers of patients, and duration of trials are required in order to accurately determine treatment effect. Now, even though we have developed these endpoints, particularly for our Manax trial, we will make them available for anyone in the community, in the scientific community, that wants to test other therapies, such as gene therapy or in the future stem cell therapy. We will work with those investigators to help them develop treatment trials that in fact will determine treatment efficacy with a high degree of accuracy and in a convincing scientific manner. We have evaluated a series of other endpoints currently available, and we have found that either many patients are required or a very prolonged treatment time. And so we believe that if patients are to be treated as part of treatment trials, these treatment trials need to be designed in a way that, in fact, the efficacy is to be determined appropriately. Here I'd like to acknowledge the many people that have participated with us, but most importantly, the patient organizations, especially NDS, that have provided so much support, not only in the US, but across the world, to try to bring patients and scientists together to find a therapy and understand the disease better for Gne myopathy. And at this point, I would like to answer any questions, whether it is regarding MANAC or regarding future studies or regarding our endpoints. And I'm also happy to answer, I typically get answered questions about gene therapy or stem cell therapy, so I can try to answer those as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Carrillo, and I want to congratulate you for your studies about this rare disease and with MANAC. Before asking the audience, I will have a question. I'm a physiatrist, physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist working in Istanbul University. Do you consider to put an endpoint, primary endpoint or parameter about functional improvement of the patients? Or is it, I mean, you only put the quadricep or muscle quantity endpoint. Do you consider to put a functional parameter also for the primary or secondary endpoint for the study?
Yes. Let me actually show you these slides. I'm glad you're asking that question. So what we did as part of the natural history study is we evaluated a series of endpoints. All patients come and stay typically for a week or 4 to 5 days, and we perform a very extensive battery of tests. Tests that are typically performed, just as the 6-minute walk test, different measures of muscle strength, such as neurology, the typical muscle strength assessment by neurology. We also do the manual muscle testing. And then we do the quantitative muscle strength assessment. We do timed up and go, stair steps. This is called the adult myopathy assessment tool, which is a sensitive measure of functional stabilization. We also do patient-reported outcomes, including the human activity profile, the ACT scale that evaluates the risk of fall, the IBM-FRS, and we are currently actually developing a new patient-reported outcome. What I want you to see here is that using currently available, let's see, for example, the 6-minute walk test. If you were to run a trial for 2 years, using the primary endpoint, the 6-minute walk test, you would need 300 patients to keep that trial a power of 80%. Okay. So, for example, with the design that I showed earlier, we showed 51 patients will give us 87% power. Okay. But with the 6-minute walk test, you would require 300 patients. Now, let's see, for example, other endpoints that have been used, such as the composite upper extremity strength in the subset of patients that can perform more than 200 meters of the 6-minute walk test. That was the design of Ultragenyx. They would have required 120 patients with a 2-year trial to have a power of 80%. So the problem with the currently available functional endpoints is that they lead to a very underpowered trial. Now, we will use the primary endpoint with the quantitative muscle strength assessment, but we will also run a secondary endpoint, all of the currently available functional endpoints, so that we can compare it with other trials, as well as understand the functional aspects of patients.